Now that we've added these initial transforms to this array, let's just make sure that those are actually working. So we want to visualize this somehow. So we don't just want to do it once, we want to visualize it constantly. So in the forward solve event, we're going to loop through all of the world final foot transforms and draw their position. So I'll click on this variable and drag it in and select get. And now, similar to what we did before, except now we're looping through the actual transforms, we're going to drag out from this array and do for each, and then connect this to the execution path. So for each one of the entries in this array, we're going to do something here. And what we're going to do is we'll right click and we can do draw, and we'll see some options for what we can draw. And because these are transforms, we're going to do DrawTransform. Connect the execution path. And the transform that we want to draw is the element, so the current one that we're in this array. So we connect element to transform. And now you'll see that there's axes being drawn all over the place. So switch it from mode axes to box, and you'll see there's some very large boxes being drawn. And I believe this may be a bug with Control Rig, since they updated the bone sizes, calculated or comprehended wrong, so they seem oversized. This may depend on what engine version you're using, but if yours looks like this, which isn't very useful because they're overlapping boxes, change the scale to a lower value to compensate. So for example, if we set a scale of 0.5, you'll see that the boxes are a lot smaller and they're at the ends of the feet. And I'll go even smaller than that. Let's do 0.1 for the scale. And you can see there's these red boxes are being drawn at each one of the ends of the legs. So I'll compile and save. So this is just for visualization purposes. We can delete this, but for now we're just going to leave it there. And now that we know that this code is working, where we loop through all the foot names, let's just add a comment to some parts just to remind you what's actually going on. So this toWorld node, let's just add a comment around that. And we'll do convert from rig space to world space. And remember, to add comments, you just press C on the keyboard. And then click on this node for the add node, press C. Add the transform to world final foot transforms array. Now, adding the comments is obviously optional, but you may find it easy to keep track of what's going on if you consistently add comments, and feel free to add your own comments and reminders just so that you can keep track of why you're doing certain things, because even if it makes sense at the time, when you're looking back or you're trying to debug or find some certain issue, you might forget exactly why you did certain things or made certain decisions. So it's always good to have a reminder. Now, before we move on, I just want to point out that these for each loops will execute anything that comes after in this execution path as many times as it loops through. So in this case, we have 6 entries. So anything that we add down this execution path will execute 6 times. If, however, we want to just do something once after this point, instead of going from the for each loop execution path, we do on the complete execution path. So from the forward solve, it will loop through all of these, execute this for as many of these as there are, and then once it's done with that, it will go down the completed path. So that's just something to keep in mind, because by accident, at some point, if you're new to blueprints in general, you will likely continue down the same path and not realize that this is all happening within a loop, and it will happen 6 times, and that will cause obvious complications.